Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at the new expansion of Hearthstone, Journey to Unguru. So to look at it, you have to go over here into the collection, click on crafting mode, and then click over here and click on filter to Unguru. And on some expansions, if they included any uncraftable cards, which is practically only classic cards, which are what you might call standard cards. I guess that's what they're calling them now. Now basic and classic are down here. Those are the only ones that really are uncraftable. Well, also Hall of Fame cards are the reward cards. They've changed the names around on me, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to look at the warrior. Last time we looked at the warlock. Now we're looking at the warrior cards. So the first card that they are adding is the 1 mana legendary spell. So I know it's a quest called Fire Plume's Heart. It's a quest to play 7 taunt minions. The reward is Sulfuras. Don't know who Sulfuras is. I don't know if you get the card in your hand or if you get the card on your field. And so all of these quests, I'm just going to have to try them out when the expansion is available and I can actually try them, which will happen in a couple of days, and see what happens there. So first, almost certainly is going to be pretty good, though. I imagine all of the quests are going to be like game-changing, probably going to win things. I don't think they're going to be just moderately helpful. Now, playing 7 taunt minions under the warrior is pretty easy, and if you're trying to do the daily quests, there are quests that want you to play a certain number of taunt minions. You may end up having a lot of neutral cards in your taunt deck, but it's not something that you really will have a problem. In fact, you have a very good chance of finishing this quest over the other quests, because if you're playing 7 taunt minions, you're almost certainly stalling the inevitable end of the game long enough so you can play more taunt minions, because your opponent then has to find a way to either silence or kill your taunt minions before they can do damage to your face, to your hero. The next card we have is a 1 mana spell called Ironhide. It's gain 5 armor. There are several cards that synergize around armor. Some of them will give you more armor if you do damage or if they take damage. Some of them will gain attack or health when you gain armor. So if you're trying to make an armored deck, that's something this is a card you want to play. In general, it's not a terrible card in the first place. It's a spell, so it might synergize just on playing a spell. If there's some character that says gain +1 attack or health because you play a spell, and it gives you 5 armor for 1 mana, which is a pretty great deal. That being said, I've played several games where I've gotten lots and lots of armor and still lost. It doesn't make a vast change to the game if you're not playing well. So you have to, in moderation, give yourself armor, and it's very possible you might have a better card that you could put in your deck of 30 over a 1 mana spell to give yourself 5 armor. Next card we have is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 durability weapon called the Molten Blade. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a new weapon. So there's a legendary card that's kind of like this. It's a 1 mana legendary creature, and each turn it transforms into a different creature. Maybe a different legendary creature, maybe just a different random creature. I think it's a different legendary. And so this is the weapon equivalent of that. It's not a terrible thought to have this in your hand, particularly or in your deck, particularly if you're playing a weapons deck and trying to get the quest to play a certain number of weapons, which can be a very difficult quest to pull off because you usually don't have that much opportunity, or you usually don't have decks with any weapons, since weapons are not very well optimized and used in this game right now. So each turn it turns into a new weapon. I assume on the first turn it's still a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 durability. So if on your first turn you just wanted to play it, you could. It's almost certainly the worst time to ever play it. But otherwise, keeping it in your hand is a decent thought if you're playing for a weapons deck. If you're not playing for a weapons deck, it's kind of too random. It's a little too crazy. The other thought would be, does this transform into weapons of other character classes? Because if it does, there very possibly are some weapons in the other character classes that if you could get it under the warrior might turn out to be an amazing trick. But we'll have to see how that plays. Moving on, the next card we have is a 2 mana, 2 attack, 6 health creature called the Cornered Sentry. It has Taunt, and it has a battle cry to summon 3 1/1 raptors for your opponent. Why would I want to play this? Well, here's why you would play this, and the strategy is kind of difficult to realize immediately. The warrior has some cards that will do 1 damage to all enemies, because all minions, enemies and friends and foe alike. And the reason for that is because you can make an Enrage deck under the warrior, where if a character has any damage at all, they become enraged and they get either more attack or more health, or they probably don't get more health ever, but Wind Fury or Taunt or something. The idea here, if you were playing an Enrage deck, would be to play this, say, on the 3rd turn. Spend 2 mana to summon this, and then have a 1 mana spell that does 1 damage to everybody. Everybody on both sides. That way, that 1 damage would kill those 3 1/1 raptors, and you would have this as a 2/5 with Taunt. Which isn't a terrible idea, and while that Taunt is going on, that may be very well protecting some other character that has Enrage and Wind Fury but a lower health, so you could use this as a defensive character, but it takes a little bit of work there. By itself, if you just played this on the 2nd turn, you are giving your opponent 3 1/1 raptors, which fills up his field, but not so badly that he wouldn't be able to summon something else probably. And at the very least, if he needs more space, he could just attack you and make this a 2/3 then, and kill those 3 raptors, which is where this really balances out to. Is effectively this is a 2 mana, 2 attack, 3 health creature with Taunt, if you ignore the summoning 1/1 raptors and just say they always will attack and get it down to a 2/3 instead of a 2/6. So there's definitely strategies to play this card, but you're going to have to really think it through and make sure that's what you want, because by itself it's kind of a silly card, but not terrible. It's still pretty good. Next card we have is a 2 mana spell, Explore Unguru. Replace your deck with copies of Discover a Card. Wow. What an amazing card here. So the difference here between, there's a Warlock card called Renounced Darkness, where it replaces all the Warlock cards in your deck with a different classes cards, and they cost 1 less. The difference here is on your 2nd turn, you can just get rid of your entire deck and then discover a card. This is an amazingly insane gamble, and I don't see any reason why you'd ever play it on a warrior. This is a stupid card. It really is. I mean, it's fun dumbness, definitely, but unless you were doing some kind of tournament or something, and you could somehow make sure that both players had this card and played it first, which then just kind of makes it like a tavern brawl. There's no reason to do this. Unless you're some kind of genius at Hearthstone and you think given 3 random cards, you can always pick something better than having a deck that was custom built and synergized with itself and had a great strategy behind it. You think you can just pick 3 random cards and always be given 3 cards that are better than having an actual strategy. I see no reason why this card would ever get used. And then the other problem here is, does it cost mana to play the card that says discover a card? Or is that a 0 mana card? Because if it's a 1 mana card, then throughout the rest of the game you're going to have to spend 1 mana to discover a card, and so every card is now effectively 1 mana more expensive. And that is the exact opposite of renouncing darkness. And I don't see why anybody would choose to opt into that. This one's really got my head spinning. It seems almost like they just needed to create something, so they created something that nobody would ever use. Like, if anybody seriously tries to move up the ranked ladders playing this, or picks this in an arena run, I would like to see him play it and succeed, but I don't think they would. Moving on, the next card we have is a 5 mana, 3 attack, 6 health beast called Direhorn Hatchling. It has taunt, and it has a death rattle to shuffle a 6/9 Direhorn with taunt into your deck. Now, what's interesting here is we've got yet another beast in the wrong character class. There aren't that many warrior beast cards, if any, that have existed before this. And I suppose that gets down to the fact that this is Journey to Unguru and it's supposed to be dinosaurs and beasts everywhere. It is certainly opening up a door that at some point in the future you may have a bunch of neutral beast cards that synergize with custom character beast cards, and you could have a beast deck in all 9 of the different heroes styles of deck. But if they're going to go down that route, then they also have to do that for every other style of character. So we would need to be able to make an elemental deck in all 9 of the characters, and if you start to do that, then it makes the character cards less and less valuable, which is an argument that maybe they should do that, because so often we see the professionals are playing 1, 2, maybe 3 of the characters, and that's it, and they don't ever play the others. 4, 5 mana, this card though, is a 3/6. If you balance that out, then it's a 4/5 or a 5/4 for 5, which is a little bit below the curve. But then it also has taunt, which then kind of puts it on the curve or above the curve. And it has a death rattle ability, which if you're trying to make a death rattle deck in the warrior, I don't know why you'd want to do that. That might work and be helpful. And it shuffles a 6/9 Direhorn with taunt in your deck, which gives you an extra card. And it doesn't say here how much a 6/9 Direhorn with taunt would cost, whether it's another 5 mana or cheaper. That's going to slightly affect how useful this card is. But on the things that I do know, it looks like it's a pretty good card. So that's one worth considering at least. Next card we have is a 5 mana spell called Sudden Genius. Summon copies of your damaged minions. Oh, that's not Genius, it's Genesis. Sudden Genesis. If you're playing an Enrage deck, I could certainly see doing this for 5 mana and then refilling your hand if your hand was low, but I'm not sure that strategy actually synergizes with the Enrage strategy as much as you would think. It's kind of a backup spell, something to protect you in case all of your enraged characters now was somehow eliminated. which does happen fairly frequently, is that people will have spells or cards that can just kill all the enraged characters of the warrior. And so having that backup might actually be very useful if you're making an enraged deck. So the question, you just kind of have to look at your cards in particular and say, do I have enough room to have 1 or 2 copies of this card in my deck? And if you do, because you don't have anything better, I could certainly see playing it. I don't see any major synergy or strategy here, though. It's just kind of a backup. Moving on, the next card. I was thinking there was something else about this card, but I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't know. Moving on, the next card we have is a 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health beast called Ornery Direhorn. Ornery being a big word for disagreeable. So it has taunt and a battle cry to adapt. And we still don't know what adapt is, and we won't until we play the cards, almost certainly. And because that's the case, then we don't know how much better this is, but you can almost guarantee that this is a card worth playing. It's slightly below the curve as it is, as at a 5/5. But if it adapts to a 6/6, or if it doubles to a 10/10, that's when the range is there, is that either adapt is going to do something incredibly different, or it's going to just increase the attack and health, or double the attack and health. The other thought is maybe it adapts against your opponent. So if your opponent is a warlock, maybe it becomes slightly more fiery. If your opponent's a mage, maybe it becomes slightly more magical. Like, that would be crazy though, because then there would be 9 different variations in which every single card in the game could adapt, and that doesn't make sense at all. But I don't know what else it adapts to. It's not like there are specific locations or lands, unless they're going to adapt to the side art of a game, which that wouldn't make any sense. So yeah, I'm very, very interested to see what adapt does, but I imagine it's going to do something worth it, whatever it does. Otherwise the whole adapt thing is going to fall flat on its face with this expansion, and we'll never want to play a card with adapt to begin with. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Next card is a 7 mana, 1 attack, 11 health elemental creature called the Tar Lord. And it's similar to what we saw in the Warlock. It has +4 attack during your opponent's turn and taunt. Therefore, it's effectively a 4/11 taunt defensive creature, but it can't do very much damage. Now, the only problem here that I have with this, and it's the same problem I had with the other one that was like this, is there's really no way to silence this guy and get that extra attack. And if you balance this out and say you put 5 here, then you'd have 6/6 with taunt for 7. So it actually is kind of low by itself if you ignore this +4 attack. It's a little bit below the curve, even though the way this is done is amazingly separated. But then if you take this 2 and add it to the 6/6, then you have an 8/8 equivalent of a card for a 7, and then it becomes worth it. That being said, it's a 5/11 during your opponent's turn, which still is probably worth it. Play this on your 7th turn. Your opponent has a 5 health, 5 attack creature. It attacks, making this a 5/6, kills 1 creature. 2nd turn, he attacks with a 5/5 creature again, or he has another 5/5 creature. The same turn he attacks, that makes this a 5/1. He's killed 2 creatures, and let's say he has one character that just has one attack and he attacks, so he's gonna kill a 1/1 creature. And so, on average, I imagine the Tar Lord is gonna, as a defensive creature, kill at least 3 characters. And I don't know if there's a card in the Warrior that could copy your health to your attack, but I know there is a card like this in the Priest. So if there's some way that the Priest could steal the Tar Lord as a card from the opponent, or just magically discover it and summon it, this card could be abused through some random strategy to make it an 11/11 for 7 mana, or a little bit more than 7 mana, which still, even if you pulled off that strategy, it wouldn't be super overpowered. Interesting. It's kind of a shame that we don't see these strategies, these defensive characters in all of the characters. We've only seen them really in the Warrior and the Warlock, and the other 6 characters don't really seem to have anything like that. What was the quest? I've forgotten it already. 7 taunt minions? Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely play 7 taunt minions. The final card we have is a 9 mana, 9 attack, 7 health beast called King Mosh, legendary card. And it has a battle cry to destroy all damaged minions. So the issue with this card is if you're playing an Enrage deck, you could only play this on the 9th turn and kill all of your own Enraged characters, which you may not want to do on the 9th turn, but maybe that's a valid trade-off. Honestly, though, as I'm starting to think about the different scenarios, it's not likely, let's say you were on the 10th turn instead, and you somehow had nobody on the field. It's highly unlikely on the 10th turn you'd have nobody on the field and your opponent would have 7 minions on the field. And then you would play a 1 mana spell to damage all of those minions because you're playing an Enraged deck. And then you would play this and it would kill all of them. Because that effectively, I think, is the ultimate implementation of this card. Would be on the 10th turn to damage all the opponents, kill all 7 of them, and not have anything on your side of the field that kills them. And then at the end you have a 9/7. I mean, that is a game changer, but that seems like a highly unlikely scenario too. So you're gonna have to look at your other cards and see if this really synergizes well, because it doesn't really feel like it synergizes well with the Enrage deck. It might synergize well with a Beast deck if we can do a Beast deck under the Warrior, but no, nothing else. And there's only one card that adds armor, so they didn't expand on the synergization of the armor, and they're not really doing anything with the weapons in this expansion as far as character classes. So a little disappointed with the Warrior. I was pretty disappointed with the Warlock expansions too. But I think in general what we're going to find out is that the neutral cards are going to turn into the things that really help. And I wish they had continued with the Cabal idea that they did in One Night in Gadgetzan. No, it's not called One Night in Gadgetzan. It's called... is it called? No, it was called One Night in Karazhan and Welcome to Gadgetzan or something. The latest update before this one, they had these Cabal cards, and because of these Cabal cards, they made neutral cards that were playable in 3 different classes, so they could be a little bit more powerful, but they're still only playable in 3 classes instead of being playable in all the classes where they might be overpowered. So you can play, for instance, this Cabal, the Grimy Goons, in a Hunter, a Paladin, or Warrior decks, but you can't play them in, say, a Mage deck. And if they had, in Journey to Unguru, decided to do more Cabal cards like that instead of doing specific character cards, which I think they're just kind of obliged to do at least 12 specific character cards. If they had done like only 3 specific character cards and then several more Cabal cards, I would have preferred them to go that way, because some of these cards very well might work better in a different character class. Speaking of character classes, we are done with them, so next time will be the long video in which we go through all the neutral cards, and you can see there's going to be a significantly larger amount of neutral cards to look over, and that's where we're going to start to see, are the strategies that we've seen just the beginnings of in the character classes, will they actually synergize and work with the neutral cards? Or is it going to turn out that Journey to Unguru as an expansion isn't going to work very well by itself and is going to require us to use cards from the previous game? Which I guess ideally, on some face of it, it would be nice if it was 50-50 old cards and new cards that makes the best deck. And it probably still will be that no matter what Blizzard does, but also Blizzard's kind of greedy, and maybe they would just make all the other cards from the previous expansions not as good as the newest cards. Therefore, a deck of just Journey to Unguru cards is a better playable deck than any of the previous expansions. So we're going to have to find that out. So if you're watching this live, please stay tuned. Otherwise, as always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.